Hello everyone, Carthage must be destroyed. I have some 6mm tanks here that I've done up fairly quickly that I just want to kind of review and share. These are my first paint jobs, and they're relatively quick and fast paint jobs for GHQ Miniatures. They do a bunch of modern and World War II 6mm stuff, as well as some other items, but I'm more familiar with their 6mm stuff. These ones here are T-72 B3Ms. They are kind of your modern Cold War era tank. They're Russian tanks. They are, yeah, like I said, T-72s. They are upgraded versions because the Cold War T-72 has been around for a long time, but Russia seems to continue to use and export and put these into mainstream use. So I did some up here, and you can see on the side here, I didn't really remove the mold lines because what I wanted to do with these tanks is try out my desert colors. So I did these up really quickly. You can see in the back here, I've got some different shades and variants that I put together. Now, these tanks here in particular are very new. They, like I said, they're T-72 B3Ms. So they're kind of like modern day upgrades. I think these were upgraded in 2014, and I've painted them with desert colors to be used in basically Syrian war conflicts. I tried out different color schemes here because I wanted to see what works best for desert, and I actually like both of these color schemes here, the lighter sandy color and then like a darker yellow. I tried a green one out here which turned out okay, but I don't think I'll do many of these because I don't really like it on the sand. And when I put the AK sandy base under it, I just don't think it looks as good. But yeah, I really like these ones here, and I'll tell you guys how I painted it up here in a second. Now, some of you guys might have been watching the news, and you might even recognize these tanks. GHQ does such a good a job, by the way, at getting the details. I'll move to this other one here, just to show you the different color what I'm talking about. I got some dog hair in there, oh well. But yeah, GHQ does such a good job on details. It looks like every single little detail's there, all the way down to even the side plate armor, and even the guns and the barrels all look authentic. Now, you might have seen these on the news recently if you're paying attention to the Ukraine-Russian war, because the Russians are actually using some of these tanks, I believe. These are 2014 upgrades that they rolled in. There's also a tank that looks very similar to this, which is the T-90. But the T-90 is actually also a version of the T-72. I think it's a T-70D. The T-90 is a T-72 BU variant, but they've changed the name, okay? So a lot of those tanks that they're rolling in to the Ukraine are all Cold War era tanks that have these kind of upgrades, from my understanding. And they still make them and use them. And they're used all over around the world. You can see them in Syria, Georgia, Armenia. Lots of places have these tanks. Now, I've painted these with desert colors because I want to do some Syrian war as well as some Gulf War stuff. But these are fairly newer tanks. The B3Ms here, that like I mentioned, were upgrades in 2014. So you're probably more likely in the Gulf War, and well, especially the Gulf War and the Syrian war, to see older tanks. So you're going to see older variants and different variants of the T-72s. But I just wanted to do a quick video reviewing and showing off the newer variants and their paint jobs. These were just tests here that I did quickly, and all I really did with these, there's a specific way to paint 6mm models and make them look really good. And I've heard that you can't just use, I don't know, maybe you guys have heard this too, but I was told that you can't just use your basic traditional methods of painting 28mm stuff. But honestly, all I did was paint these exactly the same way as I paint my 28mm World War II tanks. Basically, I just got the metals in, and I really carefully cleaned the metals in soap and using a paintbrush. They're you got to be a little more careful with these because they're small. They're only 6mm, right? And they're really delicate. So you'd be really gentle with when you clean them. And then I just used the paint-on primer. I used Vallejo Tan paint-on primer. And I used that for all of them there. And then I just did a single base coat. On the lighter tanks, I used dark sand. And then I used desert yellow on the other shade tank. I don't remember what the green one was, but that doesn't matter because I won't be painting many more of those. After that, I just washed these all with Agrax because Agrax is dirty. You can kind of see there in the plate, the Agrax is showing through, Agrax Earthshade from Citadel. And then I just dry brushed with the same color on top. So that was dark sand. The two front tanks were dark sand. The back ones were desert yellow. And then I did another, on these two here, I did a dry brush on top of that dry brush of using Vallejo Buff. And then this one I used pale sand as the final dry brush. And from a distance here, they still show, and I especially like the lighter tanks. I might do more of the dark sand variants here, the lighter sandy ones, because from a distance that pale sand really makes the tank itself pop really, really well. See, I don't really like that green one because the way I did it, it doesn't really pop. It works maybe if it's like a Russian tank in mainland Russia, but for like the Syrian and Gulf War stuff, I prefer these now. Now, as I was saying with these tanks here, these are rather modern tanks, like 2014 on, so they might be appropriate. Oh, I got some hair in there. They might be appropriate for some of the newer Syrian war stuff. But honestly, I think if I continue to build on the GHQ miniature stuff, it's probably better to aim for their T-54s, T-55s, and Cold War era T-72s. I think these are a little too upgraded for the Gulf, especially the Gulf War, and for the Syrian conflicts there. So, and I haven't painted any 6mm infantrymen yet. They're really small because I mean, like, maybe I can pull out no, I don't need to, but they're really small next to like 28mm. They look like those remote controlled toy tanks next to 28mm guys. So they're really small, and the infantrymen are going to be small. There's not going to be a lot of detail on there. But I mean, once you get terrain on and start filling it up, it'll look really nice. This mat here is a cigar box battle mats. It works well for any scale, really. But yeah, the benefit here was 6mm wargaming, and I am specifically doing wargaming in here. I didn't put as much effort into these tanks as I did with 28mm. 28mm, I put a lot more time and a lot more technique. These are all just dry brushing, and they turned out perfectly fine for just wargaming standard. I see some people do a lot more complex stuff with this scale, but for me, I'm just gonna put them on 25mm bases, put some simple sand around them, and just have that for another option for wargaming. And like if you watch some of the other wargaming channels out there that do this kind of scale, you'll know that in such a small scale, you get a huge amount of area to actually game on compared to 28mm, where you have limited space if you only have a certain size table. You know, at 6mm, suddenly you're able to expand the terrain because you can actually have legit cities on 6mm, where, you know, in 28mm, if you're limited with space, you can only have maybe like a quarter of a city or like a little section. So I think at this scale, the wargaming is going to be more realistic when it comes to terrain and space used, whereas you know, in 28mm you can get more detail, do a little more work on it. But for wargaming, I think they work out well. But yeah, that's just my little review on how I painted and what I think of the GHQ stuff. I think they're awesome, easy to dry brush and just get going if you're just doing simple tank work like I plan to do and just want to use them for wargaming. Again, once you look at them from afar, I mean, that's just dry brushing. Really done well and quick. So, but yeah, that's all the video is for today. Just wanted to show you guys another project I plan to do. Next time I share my 6mm tanks. I don't know when. I have to get some more. I don't know when and if I'll do any more, but I'll definitely get more of the older tanks to represent the Gulf War and some of the older Middle Eastern Russian variant vehicles that they have going. So thank you guys all for watching. Please remember, Carthage must be destroyed. We will see you all in the next video. So we'll have a good one. All of us. Bye.